I'm Gale Brewer, Manhattan Borough President, and welcome to this edition of Represent NYC on Manhattan Network. Right now, my office is accepting applications to serve on one of Manhattan's 12 community boards. Community boards are the most grassroots local form of government in our city, weighing in on everything from liquor licenses to real estate development. Community board members deal directly with government agencies and sit across the negotiation table from some of our city's most powerful real estate interests. But as important as they are, the people who serve on these boards aren't politicians. They're volunteers of all ages from all walks of life. Here with me today are really fabulous people to talk about their experiences serving on community boards. Zoe Markowitz, who is the youngest member of Community Board 8, which is on the Upper East Side, Andrew Zelter of Community Board 1 in Lower Manhattan, and Tina Branham of Community Board 7 on the West Side, where I used to serve. Thank you, Andrew, Tina, and Zoe, for joining me today. To get started, we'll start with you, Tina. What would you say the biggest surprise was when you joined your community board, and in this case, Community Board number 7? Yeah. By the way, I'm so happy you're all here, I can't tell you.
Thank you for
having us. I love community boards, by the way. I love going to community board meetings.
We love having you.
I love going.
I think the most surprising thing was how much support I got when I first got there. Within my first month, I was set up with 2 mentors, and they really introduced me to the community board culture and walked me through the process of a meeting, which is a little difficult to understand if you're not familiar with it. I also reached out to several members just to get a sense of the community board history and what the issues affecting Community Board 7 were, and people were so willing to sit down with me and have conversations with me. And I think in total I ended up with about 5 or 6 mentors just in my first few months of work. And
that's
it was
very
so
special.
Awesome.
That'll make Penny Ryan, district manager, very happy.
Absolutely.
Andrew, what about you? What was surprising to you?
I would say it was twofold. First, I think diversity, and by diversity I mean the membership of the community board. And if you just take this panel, for example, we have Zoe, a high school student, and part of your program to bring younger folks into the community, and Tina, who comes from, I think, a great community perspective, being involved in the New York City Public Library. So. One would be diversity of membership of the community boards. I think the second would be the diversity and complexity of the issues that our community boards face. So if I just think quickly of some of the issues that have come before Community Board 1 over the last few months, things like water surge protection for our neighborhood having been impacted by Sandy, things such as preservation of affordable housing for the community we have. So those would be really the 2 aspects that impress me, the diversity of issue and membership and the complexity of the issues that the community boards take on.
I totally agree. Zoe, you are very special, and you could talk a little bit about your unique experience, but what was surprising to you to be on Board 8? I'm sure they were surprised to see you, more importantly.
Well, I think being the youngest member, I was a little worried going in how people would respond or treat me. And everyone was just so friendly and so welcoming. And beyond that, they just went so out of their way to talk to me or just email me. And I really appreciated that. I think just how passionate everyone is about all the issues. Living in the district, you may think, oh, so city bikes were a big thing that just happened. And you think, oh, city bikes were just installed, whatever. But there was actually so much thought and so much energy that was put into that.
Yep.
And just that there's this whole group of people that care so much about the community. It's really special.
That's wonderful. And Andrew, I think you talked a little bit about complexity, but are there some issues and projects that have been part of Board 1 that is particularly of interest to you? You obviously had Superstorm Sandy as a major, I mean, you've had everything in Board 1, really.
We've certainly had quite a bit. And there's one issue in particular that I'm passionate about, and it's really been related to the explosive growth of Lower Manhattan in terms of attracting families into the neighborhood. I'm particularly interested in activities for our youth. So I'm involved in our Youth and Planning Committee and Community Board 1, which focuses on issues such as school overcrowding and the lack of school seats to keep pace with the growth of residential building that is occurring in Lower Manhattan. Also involved with the lack of open recreational space for that growing community. Our kids simply need places to learn, and they need places to grow as well physically. So for me, I'm particularly passionate about what's happening with our youth in Lower Manhattan.
Because the growth is something, 200,000, and now you're up to, I don't know, 600, 750. It's so huge.
It's truly been one of the fastest growing areas, certainly in the area, if not, you could argue, perhaps parts of the country.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Tina, what has been your most interesting project or something that you'd like to work on in Board 7?
Sure. So I sit on land use and youth education and library committees, and the issue that I'm really passionate about that affects our board currently is one that sits at the intersection of those two committees. So I'm particularly interested in how schools and local communities are impacted by development. So I'm currently working on an initiative to get a group of parents and city agencies into the same room to be in a discussion of how the parents can get support for their students and educators as their schools are impacted by developments that are adjacent to the schools.
Good for you. And Zoe, that's, the same issue for you. You talked about city bikes a little bit, but is there something that you're passionate about? I just want to say how proud we are of you. I can tell you, as Andrew hinted, that with the city council and the state legislature and the governor, we had to go all the way to Albany to get you on community board, just so you know. We had to change the laws so that, it was my idea a long time ago, but to change the law so 16 and 17-year-olds could be on community boards, and you're certainly making us very proud.
Thank you.
But is there something on the board, some project that you'd like to accomplish or that you're working on that you're proud of?
Well, I'm very proud of the whole city bike thing. I think it's really great, and I'm very interested in the whole debate. I can see both sides of pro city bikes, against it, so I think that's very interesting. Also, just always maintaining affordable units in the district. I think with the creation of the 2nd Avenue subway, that's something that is on our minds. So yeah, we're working on that, and that's a passion of mine.
That's fun. Now, the affordable housing is definitely on the discussion board as we speak and sit here. Is there, I think in Board 1, I think I have the wrong numbers. You were at 20,000, you're going to be at 65 or 75,000. I had a few extra zeros there. But the impact of having so many new wonderful residents impacts the schools, but also people have to afford to live there. Is that something that Board 1 is focused on?
I think the board is quite focused on what has been happening with the growth of Lower Manhattan and the ability to create an environment where we're welcoming people of all types and ages and socioeconomic status. So yes, it's something that we discuss with great regularity when projects come before us of a residential nature. Certainly the question of what is the strategy or plan of incorporating affordable housing into these developments. So it is certainly, I would say, one of the higher priorities we have across CB1 in Lower Manhattan.
Now in Board 7, you have some definite discussions about affordable housing.
Absolutely.
And in the discussion about zoning that I am quite familiar with, one of the challenges is when you have a community like 8 and 1 and 7, sometimes the developer will say, well, I don't want to put the affordable housing on site, which I personally disagree with, but it's legal. So we might change that in the future, but that's the law right now. And sometimes money sits in a fund until we can find a location. That may not be so true because you're building so much in Lower Manhattan, but it is true in Board 7. Absolutely. So how are some of the affordable housing discussions discussed?
Absolutely. That's actually one of the first issues that I discussed with one of my mentors on the board. Community Board 7 was allotted, I think, $50 million in relationship to the expansion of I believe it was collegiate school. And we had long conversations about how that money could be used, especially since the housing would have to be off-site. And I think that especially our housing committee and our land use committee had extensive conversations, and I think that there were a lot of issues thrown out. And I think we eventually settled on writing a letter and submitting it to a couple of different elected officials. So we're definitely thinking carefully about those issues, and I think it's a wonderful place to get together a lot of different ideas about it and then mobilize and do something about it.
Yeah. So on a different topic, how do you think young people fit into the community boards, and do you think there are other ways in which the community boards could be more responsive? Because I'm really excited that your voice and voices of young people are there. But are there, I mean, I'll be very honest with you, very sophisticated and knowledgeable, but we want to even have even more. People may not have all of your wonderful assets, but how would you involve more young people in a positive way, and how should the community boards be more responsive?
I just think knowledge, just knowing about the community board, because I think so many people I talk to my age, they just have no idea what that is. And I didn't know either until my principal sent out an email to the whole school. And so I just really think promoting the whole idea of it, maybe on social media so students could see that. I guess me talking to my friends, just getting the word out there that there is this thing that you can serve on and have your voice be heard, because I think kids often feel like they can't. So I really just think letting them know that there is a community board, because I think it is often very confusing. People think it's like city council, but it's not. So just letting them know, educating kids around New York City.
Okay. You should know that we got such huge interest when we originally had the young people can apply outreach, and we were only able to apply some because we only have a few community boards. So we're actually doing a youth council, working with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, we're really excited. So Andrew, diversity on the boards, you were nice enough to talk about that, and it is. It's all different kinds. You need architects, you need planners, you need parents, you need everything. And do you feel like there needs to be more diversity? I know you said there is quite a bit, but what kind of skills do you think are needed on a community board, and are there other skills that we could be looking for? I mean, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and actually, if you'll permit me, I'll take that question and somewhat tie it back to your previous question.
Yes,
I think there's tremendous diversity of life experiences, of professional perspective. I particularly enjoy what you are embarking on, which is creating diversity of just age, age range, bringing different perspective from an age standpoint, which I don't think it's both a good thing to do, but I think it's also essential if you think of how the world is changing. And a lot of that change is coming from our younger population in terms of use of technology in communities today, and use of communication in our communities today. So one, I applaud you for your efforts to introduce more youth into the community board process, and I think that's the right path in terms of more diversification in the community board. And to your point of how we can attract more of that, I would agree with Zoe's comment about just awareness. So I'm a father of 4, and I'd love to see my kids take an interest in following Zoe's path, and that onus is on me to make them aware of it, but as of now, they're not. I think the other aspect of how we can perhaps get them involved, I know in Community Board 1, we have a lot of projects, and I'm sure the other community boards do as well, that involve research and data collection and analysis. And I think reaching out to local high schools and perhaps creating opportunities for teams to come together to handle a data project or some type of a survey process would be a great way to attract that population and again create that diversity.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So Tina, you talked so well about mentorship. And in the Borough President's office, we've tried, because we take your work so seriously, to have trainings, on land use, on Robert's Rules of Order, on budget, et cetera. And I'm just wondering, are there other kinds of trainings? You obviously talked, as I said, about mentorship, but are there other kinds of trainings that you think would be helpful now that you've been there for a while and you've seen what goes on in the community board?
I think one of the things that would have been most helpful for me to, if it had been kind of institutionalized in Community Board 7 is a deep dive into the history of Community Board 7, because a lot of times I'll sit in meetings and someone will reference, oh, well, this has been the precedence for voting on these issues, especially on business and community affairs issues. So it's just so helpful to have that insider knowledge and that insight into what's already happened in the community board, and I think it gives you a sense of why the board tends to lean one way or another. I think another thing that it's helpful to know about the board is demographics. That isn't something that I knew a lot about when I was entering into my board, but I think it would have been so helpful to have a sense of who is actually in the community, what's the community profile.
And how long have you been on? Because you're such a great member. How long have you been on? I know I should know this.
So I'm actually a relatively new member of the community board, although I've been quite involved in the community for many years, but this is my third year.
Fabulous. And do you also think, I mean, your area is so interesting. I mean, it's challenging and interesting at the same time. What are some issues, you talked about the schools, you talked about resiliency, but what are some issues that the board maybe or maybe not has time to plan for the future? Because you do have a changing neighborhood. Right.
We definitely do. And again, I think a lot of the issues really come back to ensuring that our infrastructure being defined as transportation and health services and other core components of what drives a community. I think, again, in some respects, we're trying to catch up to what has been happening in terms of the development and residential explosion and commercial explosion, which has been a good thing, but it has come with its challenges. So those have really dominated, I think, the landscape of what we've been trying to tackle. In terms of a view to the future, I think that's quite an insightful question. As you know, we're continuing the build out of World Trade Center Ground Zero area, and understanding what that truly will bring to the community, I think, is something that we continue to discuss and ponder and try and understand. Yeah, it's clearly going to be a destination spot.
Sometimes with community boards, you have so much on your plate, you forget that, what's going to be next, And I know in Board 7, when I was on, we didn't really understand how many more families would be coming into the area around Riverside Boulevard. So Zoe, how do you get back to your, colleagues at school or people your age to talk about what you're doing? Obviously, we're really proud that you were in the New Yorker. We were all joking and saying, no, nobody at your age gets to be in the New Yorker. But how do you get back to your colleagues and tell them what you're doing or what some of the issues are? Because I think you're right. In Andrew's case and Tina's case, maybe more people know about the community boards, but not in your case.
I just think after a big meeting or something the next day. So meetings they start at 6:30 and they can often be a few hours. So the next morning it's kind of something that's on your mind. So a friend will say, oh, what'd you do after school yesterday or whatever. So just talk about that, and everyone has things that they do. So people will talk about what they do, and what I do is just a little different. So we all have our stuff. Wonderful. So just talking about that, and sometimes schools are mentioned, so I'll be like, oh, our friend that goes to this school, that we were talking about that school in the Youth and Education Committee or something like that. So things always come up that kids I know or my friends will be interested in. So, just after there's something, a big meeting, it's on your mind, talking to your friends yeah.
It's so funny because when we were doing the presentations for the 16 and 17-year-olds, a member of Board 4 who's all of 20 was old. He's very old. And so he was explaining to everybody, you got to get your homework done before the meeting because you're going to be there sometimes till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And people said, you're old. You really believe all that? Go ahead.
So, I can only imagine, Zoe, the first time one of your friends asked you what you did last night and you answered, I was at a community board meeting. I'd imagine you caught them a bit off guard.
So Tina, how do you, I think this is one of the issues we still need to address is how do we get more outreach into the community? Because even though we're kind of joking, like we know what the issues are, I always find a lot of people don't know that there's a community board. So how do you think we could do better on that, all of us together?
Yeah, I have to take it back to how I actually got involved in community boards. I did the Coro Fellows Program in Public Affairs, and one of the things that we were first tasked with was going out and going to a local community board meeting. So my first meeting was actually in Community Board 12 in the Washington Heights area, and I thought it was so awesome that there was this board that handled local issues, and you could go to and talk to them about what issues existed in your area, and they could do something about it. So I think creating partnerships with programs like Coro and different foundations that touch a lot of different people, and spreading the word to them so that they can actually, be soldiers in this effort to spread the word about the community boards.
I'd love to, please,
if
go
I just
ahead.
might expand on that, and this may exist. I'm a few years removed from high school and college by now, but I think going into the high schools and colleges, and if it's a part of a program or just an after-school type of informational session, this is our community board. These are the issues that we do address. And I think focus on those issues that are pertinent to that age group. Yes. Because yes, they might have a view as to what we do with transportation and housing, but what do we do that's important to their stage of life?
Yeah, I agree. And the other issue is outreach for the community board applications, which we were talking about, because we try, Deputy Borough President Aldrin Bonilla has been working on this really, really hard. And I think we need to do some of what you just suggested, not only to tell people about the community board, but so they apply. Because it's interesting, during the year even, you have we have 12 boards in Manhattan, and we have 50 persons, and each year there's 25 potential appointments. Obviously we want people to continue, so you don't have all those openings. But we want, to keep the pool there so that you have good quality candidates. Right. And one way to do that is, as you just suggested, is to tell programs like Coro and to tell the schools and the colleges, as well as people who are involved as parent associations or sports organizations with their kids, or planners or architects. Each board has different professions and interests that they need to have filled. And we always ask the board, what do you think? What should be filled? But this outreach issue is a hard one, actually.
I can imagine.
Because the local papers aren't going to cover it every week, and and people, once they come to a board, you kind of get hooked a little bit, even as a resident, because you say, oh, my voice could actually be heard. Are there some meetings, Andrew, that you've been to where you feel like the board has done the kind of outreach? Sometimes people only come for one meeting, they don't come back, but sometimes they do come back. So are there issues that have, you think, touched the community and have made people want to be more participatory? You have a lot of blogs down there too.
We do have quite a few blogs, and we have a developed media network in Lower Manhattan that also is very good at getting word out. I would say I don't have experience with the other boards, but to one of your earlier questions, an observation or what impressed me is the participation and turnout of the community in general, not just the community board members, but when we have an issue of school overcrowding, we get a strong turnout. When we have an issue such as water surge protection, people show up. So I think there is strong participation that we observe in our community board.
And Tina, do you think that we always could use more, but are there issues that people are particularly interested in, or are there other issues that you'd like more people to participate in?
I think land use is always a hot topic, as well as transportation, particularly in our district, just because of issues that have happened in the past. I think that issues that are not so glamorous or sexy, but that I think definitely deserve more attention. I think a community resident came and spoke to us about trash pickup and how the lack thereof was impacting their neighborhood. And it's not a super exciting issue, but it's one that definitely impacts so many people's lives. And the fact that that person knew to come to the community board definitely speaks of the community board's importance, but I think that there's also an opportunity for more people to see the community board as a source of solutions for issues that they face.
Zoe, what do you think in terms of issues that people come to or don't come to? Are there other issues that you'd like to see people participate in?
I would say street life is always big for Community Board 8, so protected bike lanes are something we've been talking about a lot. People coming to express their concern, or if they like whatever. I would say city bikes, the placement of the city bikes, and just stuff like that, street fairs. We had a big turnout for security in schools. That was something that people were concerned with. I would say those are the biggest.
The quality of life is really important to New Yorkers, and I think the boards best define it and deal with it. And that's really a big way in which the community boards can have an impact, and people feel like their voice is heard. It's really, really important. So I think we're going to have to stop this wonderful conversation, but I want to thank my guests today for joining me here to talk about their experiences serving on community boards. These all volunteer bodies are our neighborhood's local voice, but to work, they need a diverse group of volunteers from every community. In short, they need you. So apply to join your local community board at manhattanbp.nyc.gov/cbapply. So I'm Gale Brewer, Manhattan Borough President. You can follow me on Facebook or Twitter. My name on both is Gale A. Brewer. And if you'd like to stay informed on the work of my office and what's going on in Manhattan, please sign up for my e-newsletter or email me using the information on the screen. Thank you for watching Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and thank you to my wonderful guests.